What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another weekly GSD Mode podcast interview. Every single week, I interview top real estate professionals, top entrepreneurs, and straight up top badasses that are getting shit done in life and in business. These are people choosing to not live a life of mediocrity, but instead to go out there and create big, amazing, epic lives for themselves, their families, as well as have a big impact on others. And today, you guys got another amazing, epic guest on the show. So our guest today is SCOT Brothers. So you guys check this out. Scott's first year in real estate as an individual agent closed 63 transactions through straight hustle, massive action. Second year did 88 transactions. Third year did 200 transactions, and this is his fourth year, and his team is on pace to do over 500 transactions here this year. So this is a young stud that is taking massive action and growing his real estate business and his team extremely fast. And he breaks down what he did year number one, what happened after year number two, where he leaped up and more than doubled their production, and what they continue to do, go out there and create the success that they're creating. Now, real quick, before we jump into today's podcast interview, if you are interested, so if you're a real estate agent, team leader, brokerage owner, and you are truly committed and interested in growing and scaling your real estate business on a massive level, make sure to check out my personal mentorship and coaching program at masterybootcamp.com, where you have the opportunity to be mentored and coached by me personally for the next 12 months of your life. Again, masterybootcamp.com. Lastly, if you are looking for the most effective and affordable website CRM platform that exists in the industry, this is the system that I have, that I utilize, that's helped my team become one of the top teams in the entire country and on the entire planet. So if you're looking for a great system out there to run and operate your real estate business on, to help you increase your lead generation, lead conversion, and so forth, keep your business together, make sure to check out perfectstormnow.com. Again, perfectstormnow.com, where you can book a 100% pressure-free demo, check out the system, see if it's fit for you, and take it from there. All right, you guys, let's jump on into today's epic GSD Mode podcast interview. All right, Scott, my man, welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Thanks, man. Yeah. How are you?
Doing amazing, dude. Just trying to, navigate through these crazy times of the, COVID-19 that we're amongst, and
Sure.
but things are as good as they can be,
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's definitely a crazy time to be alive. That's for sure.
Yeah, because you guys in Michigan, if I heard correctly, like you guys got completely shut down, like couldn't record, couldn't close on homes and so forth. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, it was pretty tough, man. It was kind of a virtual thing but it wasn't a virtual tour that I could like go out and actually check out the home on FaceTime with the client. It was actually like the seller. They were taking like virtual tours and then sending them to us to send, to the buyer's agent or the buyer. And that was just, I don't know, man, it's tough to buy a home for any price, when you got, people just looking at it on a screen, because that can totally be, you're like, oh, this room looks huge. And then you get there and, maybe it is or it isn't. But yeah, it was definitely tough. The pendings, they definitely slowed down, and, we were just stacking up, buyers and sellers, getting people pre-approved and kind of doing as much groundwork as we could, that we weren't just sitting around, getting bad habits, and, kind of trying to do as much as we possibly could. So,
Yeah, right on, dude. Well, before we get into all that and all the big things that you're up to today, man, I'm always intrigued in our guest journeys that led them here in the first place. So if we were to rewind the clocks, man, like how'd you get in this crazy game of real estate in the first place, man?
Yeah. So basically, dude, I graduated from Fenton High School in 2008. Once I graduated, I took about a year off. I went and worked at a local excavation company. I realized that this wasn't quite for me. So then my parents were like, Scott, you need to start using your head, not your back, and go to college. And I did pretty good in high school, but I was like, man, I don't know about that. So they ended up kind of taking my hand and taking me over to Michigan State, where I checked in, and I graduated with a degree in math and biochemistry. From there, I worked at a temp service called Aerotech in the Gateway Center in Flint. It's right at Corner of Hill in 23. And I worked there for a 6-month term, and they're like, hey, we have another opportunity at a company called NSF in Ann Arbor. You can do a 6-month, temporary job thing there. And, I did that 6 months, and then they're like, oh, after this 6 months, we're going to hire you in halfway through the next 6-month term as like a real employee, and give you like benefits and all this stuff. And then that whole 6-month term went through. And then I was like, they're like, oh, well, we'll wait till Q2. And, we're still a few months out. And I was like, man, this ain't working. So then I just took my badge off, threw it on the boss's desk, walked out. Now I was jobless, right? And I was like, oh, here we go. So then I was like, well, how do I make a bunch of money? And, you know, I didn't really know what I was doing. So I actually went to Tractor Supply, this kind of farmer store around here. I bought a chainsaw and some rope, and I went and bought an old truck, and I started a tree service, right? And I just tossed some ads on Craigslist and Facebook, started kind of getting used to how them things worked, and started kind of getting a bunch of clients. And then next thing you know, I had bucket trucks, dump trailers, stump grinders, flatbeds, you name it. I had the whole deal and a bunch of workers. And then from there, I was actually up in a tree one day, and I was just seeing all the bull crap going on, right? I was pretty upset. Just everyone was kind of doing whatever. Half the people that were supposed to be at work weren't. And I'm like, man, like, this ain't for me either. So then the lady in the middle of all that, I bought a house, and, you know, I was like, kind of already had it in my head that I didn't want to do the tree thing anymore. And I was actually at Hungry Howie's, and I was sitting there, and there was like a little newspaper stand in the corner, and I grabbed it, and my real estate agent was on the back of the newspaper, like the magazine thing. And she looked like $1 million, dude. She had like this big, huge, like fancy thing on, and like her hair all done. And like it said underneath, like in like kind of italicized letters, it said multi-million-dollar producer. I don't know nothing. So I'm thinking this lady makes millions of dollars a year, you know, selling real estate, right? I seen what she did. You know, I feel like I could do that. And so I call her up. I'm like, hey, you know, how do I get to be a part of this? And she's like, well, what you can do is you can shadow me for a couple weeks, and just kind of ride around with me, see how things go, and if you like it. And I was like, well, you know, it's pretty interesting. So I did. I kind of learned a little bit. And then I still had my tree service, though. So I was like, well, I'm going to have to get rid of this thing somehow. So I called up another company because I was talking to her kind of like, not like kind of indirectly. I was like, hey, you know, what do you got to do to sell a business? And she's like, she didn't really seem to know much about it. She just kind of knew like residential houses. So I get on Google and I'm like, hey, how do I sell my business, whatever. And this company popped up, and I got a hold of this lady, and I met her at Starbucks, and she's like, hey, I can sell it. It's going to cost you 8%. I'm like, holy smokes. So I know what it costs. And I was like, wow, you know, she's making a little bit of money here. And about a week later, I signed everything. A week later, I get a call, and she's like, hey, I got this company that's interested in like coming to look at all your equipment. Can you get me how many hours and like how many miles and everything on all the equipment and just whatever? So I did. They came out. They paid me. I like sold the company. I had to give them my t-shirts, phones, everything, man, all the equipment, the name, just whatever. So then I had a little bit of money, and I went to a big box brokerage. I checked in, and you know, I started working there. My first year, I sold 63 houses. My second year, I sold 88 houses, and then from there, we sold 200 and just over 200 something houses last year. And now I got a pretty large team, and we went independent because I was looking at everything, and I just felt that, you know, I could use that money and kind of into advertising instead of giving some CEO another vacation. And then we picked up a building here in Fenton downtown, and we actually, it's funny, today we just picked up, well, we didn't just pick up, we picked up the keys, but I signed the lease a few days ago to another building in the Gateway Center, which is you know, where my first temp job was, which is pretty cool. So it's been a ride, man. We went from 1,600 square feet here at our office in Fenton. We were in a 12 by 12 office at the big box brokerage. And now we got just over 6,200 square feet, which is pretty cool.
Damn, dude. No, this is happening in such a short period of time, man. And,
yeah.
You know, from hearing that story, man, you seem to be somebody that's not afraid to fail, not afraid to, when I say fail, I mean, trying something new and see if it's a fit for you or not. And, you know, a lot of people have a tough time with that, man. A lot of people, you know, might be disappointed or afraid to leave the corporate world, disappoint their parents, you know, so forth. But you're one of these guys that's not afraid to try something new. And now it sounds like you found your passion.
Yeah.
Is that always been something that you've been wired with? Just, you know, like not allowing other people's maybe opinions to get to you?
Yeah. So like when I was like doing the day job, like at the temp service, I was sitting there and I was like, man, like, I was like, not financially or nothing like that, but I was sitting there looking and I'm like, there's been people that have been working there for, 10, 15, 20 years or more. And they're kind of like doing the same thing, or maybe like a slightly, better title. And just kind of, it didn't seem like something I wanted to be doing. You know what I mean? Like I wanted kind of more, like I felt like there was more out there, and just, I didn't know if I was getting like compensated and having the free time, like that I felt I deserved, and like the opportunity to work more, because like they kind of capped you at working 40 hours. You know what I mean? So if I wanted to work 50, 60, 70 hours, like that wasn't available. You know what I mean? Like they didn't want to pay overtime. They didn't want to pay, or they didn't want you around. Like it was just, hey, you're going to work from 9 to 5:30 and go home. And that's just kind of what's available and what's out there, and kind of like it or don't, and with what we're doing now, like I can come in at 6 in the morning and stay till 10 at night or anytime I want. Right. So it's just kind of different. I kind of can put more into it, and, the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. And I love that part a lot. So.
Yeah. Love it, dude. So 63 homes your first year.
Yep.
We know the statistics of the industry. 90% of agents drop out in their first 3 years, and really struggle, especially that first year is so important, man. And that's some insane production, dude. Just out of curiosity, like what can walk us through, man? Like, what does it take to close 63 homes in your first year? Like, what was your day like? What were some of the things that you were doing? And I know most people, when they hear that, they're like, oh, what was the script? Not to say that scripts and strategies don't matter, but I mean, that's a massive amount of hustle and commitment, dude.
It is. Yeah. So like, it was really weird. Like when I first kind of like sat down, like I know it sounds kind of wild, but I walked in and like, I just sat in my cubicle that they gave me, and I was sitting there and I had a Red Bull in front of me and I had a laptop, and that's all I had. Right. And I have no idea what I'm doing at all. I'm sitting there and, he gave me like one sheet of paper that said, hey, forms class is this day, this is what's going on these days, whatever, like as far as the schedule. And I was like, I don't even know the first thing about any of this, right? I know what a purchase agreement is because I bought a house once, and that's about all I got. So I was sitting there and I got on YouTube, and I started I needed to have some tools and something to provide people, right? Like you can't just call people and be like, hey, my name's Scott. I don't know anything, but I'll try to help you. You have to kind of know a little bit of something, right? So I get on there and I'm like, well, like what forms are needed, kind of what does what, and what am I doing here? So the 40-hour class, you learn some stuff, but it just kind of flies over your head. You kind of learn just enough to pass the test, and then you're kind of there, right? And I had I was like, oh, purchase agreement, went through, kind of taught myself, and grabbed a couple packets from the front desk lady at the place I was at, and, kind of went through and asked a million questions to people around there. And this lady across the hall was like, hey, this is my name. And I was like, oh, I'm Scott, kind of the new guy here. And she's like, well, where do you plan on getting business? And I was like, well, I'm not really sure. Like, what are you guys doing? She's like going on and on how referrals are like the best thing in the world. And like, that's where your whole business is going to take off. And I'm like, well, how do I get a bunch of referrals? Like, what do I got to do? And I'm kind of like trying to ask her, because she seemed to be pretty open to the idea. And like she was just sending out like cards and all this stuff like all the time. And I'm like, man, like I got to sit here and write cards, right? Like, is this where I'm at? So then I was like, well, there's got to be something else out there, man. So I get on Google again, and I'm looking at Realtor.com and Zillow and Homes.com and Facebook and all this like online stuff kind of was like, seemed to be a big hit, right? So I get on Zillow, right? Which, by the way, if you're a new agent, get ready for some calls, because they call you every 5 minutes if you seem to be interested. And I get on there, and I get a guy on the phone, and he's like, hey, you can buy a lead in this zip code, but it's like $300 for a phone call. And I'm like, $300 for a phone call? Like, holy smokes, I had to dangle in a tree 80 feet in the air to make $500. Like, that seems to be a lot of money. And then I invested like $500. And like, that was a big deal, because I'm sitting there kind of comparing it to like a car payment. I'm like, I can go buy a newer Cadillac and drive around for 30 days, and I'm going to do that for one phone call. But I kind of took the leap of faith and, paid the guy. And then the guy that I got the lead, I got a couple leads out of it. And they seemed to be a lot more interested than mom and dad and the brothers and the cousins I've called, right? Like trying to drum up business. And he's like, yeah, I'm kind of curious about this house. And then I got on Facebook, And I boosted a couple things on there, like, hey, this is kind of what I'm doing now and whatever. And I started sending stuff in the mail. And I was like trying to just kind of get something going. And then our old broker, he's like, hey, Scott, there's this company called Buffini out there, watch these CDs. And I watched the first one, and I kind of went through it, and I was like, man, I don't know. I'm not really, I just came out of the tree service, man. I can't sit here and watch these things telling me that you can get rich in real estate, and that's about all he's saying, and call your database. And I'm like, so I called my Zillow rep back, and I was like, hey, I need more like leads. So he's like, well, let's try $5,000 a month. And I'm like, let's not say we did. So I did about $2,000 worth, and I started getting some leads that were worthy, and I kind of started getting a few people. And then, I just kind of went from there. And then once I had those leads, I went to the local restaurant here. They have like a big cork board in the breezeway. And I walked up and I took a picture like in quadrants of all the business cards that were on that cork board. And I went back home because I still didn't have a database, and I was reading on the internet that was important at the time. And I typed in every name, every phone number, and email on those business cards. And I called all the business owners around town. I was like, hey, my name's Scott. I'm a local agent. I just started the other day. I was very honest with them. And, this is what I'm trying to do. If you know anyone buying or selling, please let me know. And there's a candy store in town. And the lady called me, and she's like, hey, Scott, I got your message from like the front desk lady. And actually my sister is trying to sell her house here in the next couple months, wherever. And I'm sitting there thinking like, okay, so 60 more days. And then I also got to sell it, and then I got to close on it. So I'm like 3-4 months out before I get a paycheck here. Like, this is kind of tough. So I did that, and I ended up getting the listing a little bit quicker than we thought. And, I kind of fumbled through the paperwork and did everything. And then the Zillow leads started kind of coming in, and I started getting some buyers. And then I ended up selling that listing. That was my very first listing I sold. That was in Burton, which is just probably 15 minutes down the road from where we're currently at now. And then I started working all these buyers, and then I started really kind of focusing on that referral thing where, I was like, hey, I need to get something out of what I've already paid for. Because if I paid this much and I got this much out of it, like, it's kind of, the ROI is decent, but not huge. But then I turned that buyer into a bunch more clients just from like his family members, and really trying to take care of them well. And then the open houses were huge too, because like when I had that listing, it was probably a pretty bad open house, honestly, because I didn't know what I was doing at the time. Like, I just got on Facebook and started kind of doing whatever I could to make noise about it. I put out as many signs as I humanly could without the township taking them down. I worked at Remax, so there was a huge balloon that I borrowed from like the front desk, and I blew up this huge balloon in the front yard. This thing I got a picture of it. It was like taller than I was. And I was standing out there, and like I just tried taking pictures and like putting it all over the web. And like I went on Craigslist, like making ads for the house, like, because that's where I got a lot of my tree service business, right? And I was just anywhere I could humanly put the thing. And I even bought like a Tri-County Times, it's a newspaper around here. I bought like a little 2-inch by 3-inch ad or something, like put a little thing of the house. Like, I didn't know what I was really doing, but I kind of just any little weird thing I could do, just anything that wasn't $1 million. And shortly after that, man, I just kept working the internet leads, working open houses, and like just really trying to take care of people to try to get as many referrals as I could. And, I think it was either September, October of that year, because I started pretty close to the beginning of the year. I was like, hey, I only have a month or two left until the year's over, a couple months. And I knew that I was trying to make a certain amount of money. And literally, man, I was up as early as I could and as late as I could. I was always one of the first ones at the office, and definitely the last one there, and just kept calling and grinding. Like, I was told 1.5 million times, stop calling my phone, cussed out, like, because I didn't know what I was saying, and I was kind of annoying, and I just wouldn't stop calling them. And like, just all that rejection, like, I didn't look at it as a bad thing. I looked at it like this. The way I was sitting there going, hey, if I can get a $2,000 commission and I make 100 calls, right? Each call is worth X amount of dollars. And every time somebody tells me no, it's that much money. So if it's $1,000 commission and I do 100 calls, each call is worth $10, right? I can go through and be like, hey, that's $10 bill, $10 bill. Oh, yep, you said yes. Perfect. Go stick my sign in their yard and kind of see what I can do and use my broker to get through it. And it worked out, man. the first couple months were slow. And then shortly after there, we did pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that mindset of, getting paid $10 to get told to F off.
Yeah. No,
All right.
I mean, because that's the way people get really discouraged, and they still do today, man. Like, even though I kind of try to coach people, and I'm like, hey, like when people tell you no, you got to look at it like a win. You can't look at it like it's a bad thing or like a negative light, because you'll get discouraged and just stop, right? And you have to look at it like because you're helping somebody, whether they see it or not. You're adding value to somebody, and some people just want help and some don't. And if you look at it like that, it's just a way to kind of, it makes it easier to get rejected for sure.
Yep. Love it, dude. So then, during that time, because it sounds like you really were intentional of, okay, I got to leverage each of these clients where it's not just new business coming in. As you mentioned, the ROI there's low, but if this client then can refer me a family member or two people that they know, it can scale this.
Yeah.
At the end of that first year, how much of the business of those 63 deals was starting to come from referrals?
I would say it was a pretty good chunk, man. I would say probably like a third, to be honest. Like about a third of it was probably referrals. I would say, I don't know. I'd have to really get the numbers and do it exactly, but there was a chunk from open houses. I actually, the lady, there's a city near us called Howell. And I went down to Howell, and it was a for sale by owner. And I walked in, and this is like my real first kind of for sale by owner. Like, I was kind of like, whatever. And the lady's very first question was like commission. She's like, well, it's a $430,000 house. Like, I really don't want to pay 6%. And like, I Googled and YouTubed and did everything I could trying to figure out how to like overcome that objection. Right. And I was like, I'm just going to go out here and kind of learn and wing it. And I actually didn't even expect to get the listing. And I get out there, and the lady was like, her guard just kind of went down. Like, as soon as I walked in, like all the stuff I was hearing on the phone about like commission and like, where do I work? And like, what do I know? And like, what am I going to do to sell her house? And like, everything just kind of went out the window, man. Like, she just kind of like, once, I don't know, her husband came down like from downstairs, and he's like, kind of like, oh, my name's whatever. And I was like, hey, how are you? And like, I don't know. I just sat there. I had like that huge binder of like fluff, right, with the big things. I'm going through like, oh, we're this compared to this company. And like, I didn't really know what I was just trying to show them something cool. And then I kind of went for like the thing. I was like, so, like, when can we get this thing on the market? And the lady's like, well, did you bring like a sign, the lockbox? We'd love to, get this thing out there. And I was like, matter of fact, I did. So I put the stuff out in their yard, the sign, lockbox, everything. And, we ran up to the local hardware. We tossed the key in the lockbox. And then I told them I was going to do an open house that Sunday. So I did. And I was sitting there, and we had one lady walk in, like probably just 10, 20 minutes into the open house, and then nothing for a couple hours. And I'm like, I usually don't sit down, but I kind of like just sat on the chair, like by the front window, right by the front door. And I was just sitting there like, it's like, man, this ain't looking good. Then all of a sudden, this black SUV pulls in the driveway, and like this Barbie and Ken looking couple, they were great. Like, they pull in, they like get out, they're like looking all fancy. They walk up to the door, and I was like super excited, right? So I jump up and like move all the shoes out of the way, like getting all right. I'm like, hey, my name's Scott. Like, I already had a business card ready, like hand it to him and like gave him a tour. And the lady goes down in the basement. It was a nice finished basement. She's like, wow, this is a beautiful place. Comes back up, and they talk for a minute. We go upstairs, and like everything's going good. And they're like, hey, do you have any more information about like the taxes and this and that? And they didn't really know much. And they're like, we'd like to write an offer. And I'm like, oh yeah, dude, here we go. So I was like, perfect. So I was like, yes, ma'am and sir, let's go. So I ran out to my truck. I grabbed like a purchase agreement, like from the little thing they give you, like out of the package or whatever. Grab it, go in there, and like we wrote up a deal right on the counter for $450. And I was like, man, 10 grand off. My commission should be bigger than that. I can probably cut that down. We're making a deal here, even if I could offer them full price. And I get the thing. I call up my seller like as soon as they walked out. I was like, hey, I got this awesome deal, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, wow, that's amazing. And I put that together and double dipped it. And I was like, man, calling these for sale by owners is awesome. So then I kind of started building so then I bought a program, Vulcan 7 and Mojo. We coupled those together. And then I'll just sit there in my office, man, and just call all day long and just kept trying to do the same thing, but get a little better than what I just did. And, I kind of just started kind of building off of that. And I think that really kind of exploded, to be honest. I think that's the other 2/3 of the business, was just calling FSBOs and expireds and just trying to convert those, because I didn't have a ton of money to just keep dumping into Zillow and Realtor.com and all these sites quite yet. I was like, I wasn't there, right? Like, as an individual, first off, the zip codes are hard to purchase. And then, there's always expireds and for sale by owners. And I just kind of took advantage of that, and it's paid off pretty well.
Yeah, love it, dude. And so it sounds to me, and I don't know if this is still the schedule, but first one in, last one out.
Oh yeah.
6-7 days a week,
Yeah.
right? Massive hustle. But then, a lot of people that I'll see in this industry, they say they're showing up to the office, but they're just watching YouTube videos. They're not really working. From everything you told me, man, it's like you didn't waste time. Like, you were maximizing your time to create opportunities of every minute throughout the day.
No, you have to, man. Like, I don't know. There's like a certain kind of drive, right? Like, your why has to be big, like real big. You know what I mean? Like, why are you doing something? A lot of people put like a monetary value, or they put some kind of like, I want to go see the grandkids or whatever, on the weekends. Like, there's got to be a why. And I think you have to kind of work backwards. You have to say, hey, I want to buy a lake house. I want to take care of my kids. I want to go on this vacation. I want to do this, and figure out what that entails and what you need to get that done. Or, hey, I want to save this much, or invest in this, or buy a piece of property, or a rental, or whatever you're trying to do. And then work backwards and say, hey, our average sales price is this. This is how much I need to get done. How do I leverage and just kind of delegate in order to get this done? You know what I mean? Because you can't do everything yourself. So then, once you're super busy and you're going and you're like, hey, I need to sell 50 homes, or I need to sell 100 homes to get these goals done. Like, who can I bring on board to help me get there, right? Is it an assistant? Is it a contract to close? Do I need like a buyer's agent, a showing agent? Like, what do I need to kind of get there? And I just kind of set exactly what my goals were for the year. And I worked backwards. I said, hey, to hit, like, let's say I want to do $20 million in volume of homes sold, and I know my average home price or value is 150 grand or 200 grand. I need to sell this many homes to get that done. So I either raise my, average home value higher, and that's really the only option, or I sell more homes, because I'm not lowering what my goal is, right? And I think that, that's kind of how I set my goal, and kind of just, that's basically how I did that.
Love it, man. So 63 deals the first year, 88 the second. Yep. Then you more than double your business that third year. And I'm curious, man, it's because even doing all those things and working 24/7, man, it's very difficult to close, 200 some deals.
It is, yeah,
on your own without, figuring out some form of leverage or so forth. And I'm curious, like, what happened on that third year that allowed you to start to scale at such a fast pace?
Yeah. So I think, delegation and leverage are huge. So like, I knew I couldn't do this entirely like on my own, and I just had to get out there and shake hands. And I literally sat there and I was like, well, what task can I do for less expense than what I believe my time is worth for what my goals are, right? So like, if I know I need to sell this many homes at this price point, like, what tasks are what can I give to somebody that I can pay a good wage, but maybe don't have the same goals as me, right? And then I was like, well, I don't like doing paperwork. So if I can go out and shake hands and talk to clients and show homes and get in front of people, then I'll, bring it back, hand the purchase agreement to, an assistant, and then they can kind of take care of all the back end stuff. That gives me like twice as much time to be out in the field, instead of, sitting in front of a computer doing stuff that I don't enjoy as much. And I think you have to kind of do the things that you really enjoy to do, because that gives you more drive. Like, when you're sitting there, it's hard to stay at the office till 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night when you don't like what you're doing. Like, if you're sitting there doing stuff, you're like, man, like, this isn't exciting at all. It's way easier to stay late, going to some kind of big event downtown, shaking a bunch of hands, talking to people, getting to know people, kind of spreading who you are around town. Like, that I can totally do. Like, sitting there forcing myself to stay at the office doing things that I really don't mind. So I think finding things you love to do, that it doesn't even feel like work to me, man. I just show up and I almost kind of get anxiety when I'm not doing something that's part of this stuff, because I just feel like I'm not doing what I should be doing. You know what I mean? Like when people are like, oh, I can't wait till Friday because I want to take the weekend off. Like, no, man, I don't even know what day it is half the time. I'm like, yeah, let's go, dude, 7 days a week, you know? And I think it's because I actually just love what I'm doing. And I think that's huge.
Yeah. Love it, dude. So then, recently you decided to transition into your own brokerage. So you have your team plus the brokerage. What led to that decision?
So like when I was at a big box brokerage, I think that they have a lot of value as far as like training for like newer agents. But once you kind of like when I was there, there's only so much room in their brokerage, right? So like they designated a 12 by 12 office for myself and at the time 14 people on my team. And I'm like, I have 15 people trying to work out of one office. And then, like just an assistant, in my opinion, needs a 12 by 12 office, right? Because they got all the paperwork, they're on the phone setting stuff up and doing whatever. And just kind of like, it was just, people were sitting on each other's laps, man. Like it was just way too tight. And then, I kept asking for office space, and unfortunately, it's not that they didn't want to give it to me. They just didn't have it to give to me. And obviously they're not going to buy a building to, kind of cater to that. So then we actually went not independent, but we got our own building, like our independent office, I guess you'd say, our own building about 15 minutes from there. And we were still under the big box brokerage, but we went independent. We had our independent office. We had our own space. It's about 1,600 square feet. And then we tried to get a sign on the roof because it kind of looks goofy being out on the road without a sign, right? It looks kind of odd. And, going through like regional and international and all the different, steps you have to go through when you're talking about a big company like that, it just took a long, long time. And then we started kind of, me and the core group of people on our team, we looked around and we're like, like if we took the amount of money that we're paying to a company like that and put it into advertising and different marketing and different things and Facebook and YouTube and just whatever, billboards and this and that, it seems like we'd be maybe further ahead. We can put our own training together and kind of do stuff. And, I just took what I thought was the greatest stuff there and tried to make it my own. And, we take, because you got to think, man, even at any big box brokerage, a lot of them do a 70-30 split where, if you get a $3,000 commission, you're getting like $2,000. So it's that extra $1,000 kind of can go a ways in marketing. And then, if you're paying an $18,000 or $20,000 or $25,000 cap and, 15 people on your team are also paying a pretty big cap, even though the cap's a little less as a buyer's agent, you're still paying a fair amount of money. I'm sitting there like, man, like we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of money we've paid to a company. And, it felt like another thing that was a factor was, as an agent on our team, like a buyer's agent, there's obviously a team split, because I'm paying for all the marketing and the building and all the programs and the CRMs and everything that we use and all the leads that we get. So like they have to do a split with the team, but then they also had to do a split with the brokerage, right? So now like they're getting hit, taking somebody's taking a bunch of money here and then a bunch of money on the other end. And, they're sitting there going, hey, I was supposed to get this much, like from just like the deal between me and them, but then somebody else is slicing another 30% off. And, they're not, it's really hard to recruit when you have that, you know what I mean? Like it just didn't. So then my recruiting kind of went down. And then like, cause I had kind of a bunch of people that joined pretty quick. And then like we started kind of digging for people that had the same values, and it just kind of wasn't there, man. And it was kind of tough.
Yep. Understand. So how long has it been now since, SCOT Brothers?
Yeah. So
as far as the brokerage now has been up and live.
Yeah. So we left their office space in April. And then we came to the office we're in now, or the Fenton office. That was April like 10th or 15th. We went to our own space.
19 or 20?
Of 19.
Okay.
And then, but we were still with the big box brokerage until September of last year.
Okay.
So we were there. We were in our own space, but at the brokerage for about, 5-6 months or something. And then after that, we kind of broke wide and totally went independent on our own. So independent location and independent from the big box brokerage. So it's been about what? So we got. It's been about 8 months, 7, 8 months, something like that. Yeah. And we've grown pretty quick, man. We got quite a few offices up north, and we got the one in Fenton, and we got the one coming over here in the Gateway Center, and we're definitely growing. So one thing I kind of learned too is like to have somebody. We have 3 different models on our team. We have a 50-50 model, and we have 201% models. So the 50-50 model is straight up 50-50. I pay for everything. So all the Zillow leads, Realtor.com leads, Homes.com. I pay for Boomtown CRM, Vulcan 7, Mojo Dialer, BombBomb for like emails. I pay for like business cards, signs, like apparel, whatever. I pay for everything. You get like a designated drywalled office when you're on our 50-50 team. That's yours. So there's that model. Then there's 201% models. There's one with an office bill and one without. The one with an office bill is $300 a month. And then I pay 101% commission. And then we take $295, the compliance fee on every deal. We take that $295 fee and then basically use that to give, the 1% back to you and then keep whatever the difference is. So for instance, if you close a $200,000 deal, the commission's $6,000. We pay you $6,060. We take the $295 compliance fee. So really we made $235, and then, you pay $300 a month. You also get an office space with that as well. And then the third model is 101% commission. We charge $495 per deal, but $0 a month. And a lot of people are attracted to that. If they have a spouse that's, working full time and they're just kind of doing, just kind of picking off a couple deals a year or whatever, they can kind of join our brokerage and then pay to play whenever they close a deal instead of having that monthly $300 deal. Now, if you're kind of crushing it on your own, you're better off paying $300 a month and only $295 a deal. And, that part has kind of definitely grown really fast, man. A lot of people are, if they're established, they already have a book of business, they're kind of already doing their own thing. Seems like a lot of people are pretty attracted to that.
Love it, man. So what's, because this has all been a short time, right?
Yeah,
so
it's been crazy, man.
Yeah, you made some fast moves, and what are you on pace to do production wise when it comes to the team for this year? Not the independent agents, but the team.
So the 50-50 team, we're probably going to be in the 500 deal range. The entire brokerage, definitely 750 or more, I would say. And we've gained quite a few new people, just with this new office that we've just picked up. Quite a few people have called me and trying to join. There's it's really centrally located in our county. It's like almost right in the middle, and a lot of people seem to be attracted. But yeah, we're definitely on pace to do quite a few deals, man. Right before the Corona, we had 59 pendings. We got down, I think, in the 20s, like 22, 23 pendings. We were still closing quite a few deals, before we came essential. And on the 7th, they deemed us essential. And since then, we've already pended 21 deals. So that was just a few days ago. Yeah. No, they're doing great, man. It's just providing the right tools and I don't do classroom training, man. I do one-on-one training. So like when you come in, let's say you're kind of newer or like, maybe you're not even new, but you're just, have a ton of experience out in the field. I take you, and there's a couple people that like kind of the few that have been around the longest. And one of us or all of us will take you around and take you to a listing appointment, take you on some, showings and, hold open houses with you. And that's another thing too, that a lot of places, like they just put you in a classroom, call your database. And I'm not that guy, man. I want you to come in, see what I do, listen how I talk to people, how other people talk to people. And what I'm doing is not entirely right all the time, but like if you kind of get an idea from everyone around the office, there's a lot to be learned. And just kind of sitting right next to me, I think is kind of the way we train. And we bought Trainual, which is like a company that you can, upload different training things. People can watch little videos or read stuff. We do have that, but I'm not a big like, hey, come in a classroom, every Monday and let's talk about stuff, just kind of randomly. Like I like to one-on-one train people, and it seems to be working pretty well.
Yeah, love it, dude. So I'm curious because again, man, you got the team growth. So now you've doubled again this year.
Yeah.
Because this is what your fourth full year doing this. So, I'm curious how that's evolved. Like what's working really well now? Because these are leads that you're providing, right?
It is.
So, what's working really well for you now as we're kind of halfway through 2020?
Yeah, I think that honestly there's a few different parts. I think you have to have like lead generation. I think you have to have also some branding. Like it was when I very first got into the business, let's get clients. That's all. Like, we just need business. We need now business, right? And I think that over the last like 12 to 18 months, it's kind of been like really heavy on the nurture. And like, instead of, a lead coming in, and if they don't want to buy a house like now or within the next, 30 days, you kind of forget them, is what a lot of agents do. Ours is more like let's nurture them until they do buy a house, and let's stay in front of them. And let's also start working in some branding, which is like billboards and radio and stuff like that. Let's get people hearing our name and like recognizing like who we are. It's just not like, hey, a Zillow lead came in or a Google lead came in, let's just call them, close the deal. Like, yes, that works. But I think that, kind of getting that nurture process set up and really start, because let's say like that national average for a conversion on Zillow or any of these sites is typically like 4% ish, I'm pretty sure, like according to them anyway. So if it's 4 out of 100, that's 96 people that had some kind of intention to buy. And it might have been, credit issues, or it might have been, whatever that's slowing them down, but they still had an idea to buy a home. And that's 96 more opportunities that you could have. And when you couple that, like every single month, when you get 90, that's only if you're getting 100 leads a month, like that's a lot of opportunity that a lot of agents wouldn't take advantage of. But if you put them on the right drip campaigns and e-alerts and, follow up with them and take care of them the way that, you should be, then I think there's a ton of business that's starting to that's trailing from a while back that's now coming to a closing. So
yeah,
I would say that that's probably the biggest change, is kind of keeping all of the past people and, kind of building that database and really taking care of and nurturing your CRM. I think that's huge.
Yeah. Cause it's amazing, man. Like how many people over the years, if you're working this 2 years later,
Yeah.
you never heard from them, never replied, but all of a sudden they're like, yep, we're ready.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, it's a smaller percentage, but that stuff compounds, man. And it's
100%.
powerful.
Yeah. And then also like knowing the business and being able to like share that knowledge to the people around you, and having more, because I can only drive to so many houses like every day, right? Like if I can only do 15, 20 showings a day, but if I have 20, 30, 40, 50 people doing that, now we have a lot of people out there, kind of whatever, taking care of people. So that's just more people that we can it's just like I had to pack the snowball, man, and now we're just trying to shove it down the hill as fast as we can, man.
And so are you still personally in production?
So yes and no. Like so I try to take care of some stuff. Like if I've been working with somebody for the last 2-3 years, that's like, and I've kind of have like a pretty strong relationship, I know I can trust my agents to deal with it. And I'm not saying that at all, but it's just kind of, I try to take care of them, but I don't try to take on new business, because I have a lot of stuff kind of going on as far as keeping this thing going. So anything that I've already had in the past that's super strong that I have to take care of, I do. And then my agents are, they're killers, man. So they just get out there and take care of the rest. And it's been pretty well. I try to pick off some listings here and there and kind of build relationships, that way. But for the most part, I mostly do listings and try to keep this place going here.
Yeah, love it, dude. So, we get a lot of team leaders and broker owners that listen to this show. And, I know a lot of them, when I'm speaking with them, their biggest challenge is recruiting. When it sounds like, man, you've been able to build up some really great momentum with recruiting and so forth. And what are some of the things and maybe advice that you'd give to somebody that's looking to add more agents, whether it's to their team or brokerage, to have more success with consistent recruiting?
Yeah, I think that like agent testimonials, almost like people that are on your team, I think that's huge, because a lot of people, and I've so my name's Scott Brothers, right? So a lot of people think I'm two different people, right? So like they're like, oh, are you one of the Scott brothers, or like who, like whatever? Well, they don't know like who I am. So like people will walk in, and I've even talked to people like, yeah, so what do you think about this place? And like, they like agents kind of have that curiosity of like, what's it really like? And them not knowing that I like own the place, they like think they're just talking to a normal agent. So I kind of got to see that first person. And they're like, oh yeah, like what's good? Like what's bad? Like, what do you think about it? Like, does a name mean anything? Like, when I'm at a listing or working with buyers, does working at this brokerage compared to this one mean a whole lot? And I think that telling people the truth about stuff, even if it's not totally beneficial to you, because people can kind of read through the bull crap. You know what I mean? Like if you try to, and you never bash on your competition either, right? Like if somebody's, doing something better than you, like I'll admit it right now, we don't have the absolute best training compared to some of these multi-billion-dollar corporations. If you want a classroom type training, now if you want one-on-one in person, this is how I do it type training, then we're probably a good fit. If you want somebody to, tell you a bunch of stuff in a classroom, we might not be. And we're not going to win them all, and I don't expect to, but the ones that do come in here really like it because I give them real honest expectations of what I can provide and what I can't. And either they kind of fit or they don't. And I think that some places can recruit a lot of people, but their retention might be small because they're, maybe kind of overdoing what they're really going to, do when they get them in there. So, they might join and then have people leaving shortly after they're there because they're expecting a lot of things that may or may not happen. And that's why our retention is very high, because when people come in, they definitely know, exactly kind of what's real and what ain't. And I'm always trying to do better, and I'm not perfect by any stretch of imagination, but I at least try to give an honest, real output of what's expected.
Yeah, love it, dude. So then are you approaching your recruiting just like you do with your lead generation for your team? Meaning you have different sources that you're hitting, you have the nurture that's going on, and so forth? Or is this something where you guys have been able to just grow through almost just attraction?
Yeah, there's been a lot of attraction, that's for sure. I think that the opening up the 2-101 models, I think attracted a lot of people just because, in some people's eyes, once they kind of already know, all the forms and kind of what they're doing, and they already have a book of business, they're trying to save in that cap, right, at any place. And I think that attracted quite a few people. I also, I make it like I approach people and like, or agents, and I'm like, hey, this is what we have going on, but I'm not going to set you up on like a drip email and just aggravate you until you come here and like meet with me. Right. But I just toss out the idea of, hey, if you ever decide that, there's maybe something else out there that might be a better fit for you or whatever, if they tell me that they're totally content, then I just leave them alone. But if they're like kind of even halfway interested, I at least try to get in front of them in person. That way they can A, know I'm a real person, and B, that we're local, and, just kind of see if we're both a good fit for each other. And, I put a couple Indeed apps out there, looking for agents. We've had a couple people inquire about that. We've had a couple people call in, and then a lot of agents, after we close the deal, whatever agent that was on the other side, we'll call them up and be like, hey, thanks for doing the deal. Obviously if it was smooth, and, be like, hey, I see that, things went pretty well with our deal. We closed in 21 days or 28 days or whatever it is. If you want to kind of sit down and have a cup of coffee or whatever, we can kind of go over what we have to offer if that's something you're into. And a lot of agents seem to be, into that idea.
Yeah. Love it, dude. So, man, I mean, you've had a lot of fast growth, and you're a young dude. I'm curious, man. What's your vision for the brokerage, man? Do you see yourself taking it across state lines and so forth?
Yeah, I do, man. I actually, yeah. So I just it's just, I don't know, man. It's all about helping agents in my eyes, because I kind of seen, like when I was setting at Remax, when I was very first setting there, I thought the company was great. I still think they're great, but I know what I felt that I was missing. Like when I very first day one walked in, I know that they have like a great name and everyone knows the balloon and everything's awesome. But I just, like, to me, I was like, well, like just the things that I kind of, because there's always this thing in the back of your mind of, when you're on Google, right? The hard truth is a lot of people fail out of this industry pretty quick. And that's always kind of there when you're very first starting off of, am I going to make it? What do I need to survive, and how can I make this happen? And that's why the team model, where I provide leads and provide like already kind of business and have like an established deal going, that kind of gives people that extra comfort of knowing that like there's already kind of a business that's rolling and a business model that works out there. And it's easier. I want to provide an easier way for people to not fail out of this industry. And, you know, a lot of people, for instance, there's a guy on my team that he worked at the place that we left, and he was 19 years old, man. He literally was living in his parents' basement. He had $200 in his bank account, and he drove a $2,000 beat up car that sounded like a Harley Davidson because the exhaust fell off, right? And he came in, and he was super excited, super hungry, really wanted to do something cool. And he had no money. He had no knowledge, experience, nothing. And he went to a lot of the trainings out there, and just, he couldn't engage because some people don't learn like that. Not saying that the training's bad, because I don't believe it is, but some people just don't learn in a classroom. And he came here, and he literally sat next to me for about a month, and now he's got quite a bit of money saved. He's got a brand new Cadillac. He's got his own apartment in downtown Fenton, and he's got about $1.5 million pending right now since the Corona's opened up. And you know, different people learn different ways, and you know, if I can help you in any way, I'm more than happy to do that. You know, that's just kind of how we roll.
Yeah, love it, dude. So for those that are watching and listening, man, if they're in your area and want to reach out to speak to you to learn more about the opportunities within your new brokerage and your team, and also, man, if you know, we've got listeners from all over North America here, and outside of North America, but maybe they have a referral.
Place is huge, man. You did a big thing.
Following you, like, where's the best place, man, to be able to learn more about you, learn more about your company, to get in touch with you, send you a referral and so forth?
No, absolutely. So our website, we all have personal websites. My personal one is SCOT, SCOT.sellsmi.com. Our business website is sellsmi.com. And each of the agents get their own personalized website. So it's just your first name with, you know, .sellsmi.com. But my phone number is 810-447-1716. And yeah, man, my new office is going to be in the Gateway Center, right at Hill and 23.
Awesome. And those watching, listen, we'll make it super easy on you. Right below, we'll have all Scott's contact information. Awesome. So one last question for you, man. And this might be hard to answer because you've had, you know, such big success, and according to the industry, you know, right, it'd be very big and rapid success. But if Scott today, knowing everything that you know now, could go back in time and have a conversation with your younger self when you first entered this industry, and give yourself 2 pieces of advice, what would those 2 pieces of advice be?
I would say learn from others and fail quicker is what I would say. And learning from others, like, you can learn from somebody else's mistake and not have to make the mistake. Because when I first got into this industry, I was one of the ones where somebody could kind of tell me their opinion, and I would have to screw it up and fail before I would understand it. And I'd have to do that multiple times, right? And now, like, just watching like you and Gary V and you know, Grant Cardone and Brad Lee and Ed Milet, like, watching them guys and like just listening to them and changing your mindset, I think is huge. Your mindset is everything, honestly. Like, when you tell yourself you can, you probably can. And when you tell yourself you can't, you probably can't, right? And I think learning from others is a big deal, and kind of watching them and what they're doing. And I also think that failing faster is big. You're going to fail, and you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because I've done things that, like, it just, I don't know, man, you're not going to know everything, but you can't be scared to, like, just take the risk and just go out there and get after it. And, you know, I just kind of do things and ask for forgiveness later. I don't sit there and ask if I can do it. That's just kind of how we do it things, man. So I would say failing fast and failing forward, and learning from other people's mistakes and people who have been doing things for a long time that, you know, have a good reputation. I think that would be huge.
Yeah, love it, man. Powerful stuff, dude. And those watching, listening, I know I end every podcast with this, but information without implementation is truly just the start of delusion. Information isn't power. It's taking that information and taking massive action on that information that gives you the power to create the life that you know you want and deserve. And Scott shared so many amazing pieces of advice with you guys to take something that you learn and, again, go out there and take immediate action on it so you can create that life that you know you want and deserve. And Scott, man, Truly appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to be here, dude. This has been a lot of fun.
Oh, no, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, you're awesome, dude. My whole team actually watches you all the time. It's pretty cool thing you got going on, dude. I know you got a pretty heck of a following, man. That's pretty cool. It's inspiration.
Yeah, no, man. Truly appreciate the support, man, and it means a lot, dude. And again, those watching and listening, we truly appreciate your support as well. Thank you so much for checking this out, and we will see you next time. Peace.
Cool. Awesome, man. Thank you.